Okay.
Okay, we'll call Corporate Services to order. The first item on the agenda is the 2017 draft user pay budget. Do I have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation? Moved by Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Mackay. That Corporate Services Committee consider the draft user pay budget, operating and capital. For water? Okay. Any discussions? So this is the presentation. Okay. Very good. Marcia.
Okay. Welcome. We will present the water budget tonight, and then the sewer budget will come back on May 3rd. So in front of you, I've given you the presentation. So what we'll do this time, a little different than the general budget, we'll discuss the presentation together, and then we'll go through the colored sheets there that I've attached. Just a little bit of a recap on the 2016 year end for the water. Water had a deficit of $4,087.98 in the start of 2016 year. Throughout the year, the combined water, that's Beachburg, Cobden, and Haley's for 2016 had a surplus of the same amount. And the reason why they had a surplus of the same amount is when we did the year-end process with the auditors, the treasurer and the auditors spoke, and we transferred $168,494.79, which is the combined surplus, into the water reserves at year-end. And the reason why we did that is, well, A, we wanted to build up our reserves because the water's reserves were at zero. So 2016 actual totals, and the breakdown for the water reserves are as follows. So in the Cobden water, we ended up putting $146,063.79 into the Cobden water reserve. The Beachburg water reserve was $17,400, and the Haley waters was $5,031, and combined that is the $168,494 for 2016. Just some 2016 budget highlights. So the reason for the transfer to reserves was the 2015 Aqua reconciliation came in with a big credit in 2016, and Aqua lowered the monthly rates for the last half of the 2016 year. And another reason why we did have the big surplus was because Aqua budgeted repairs were not complete in 2016. So throughout the year we had budgeted quite a bit of repairs, equipment repairs, building repairs. They did not get done. And just to touch a little bit on the Aqua highlights, the final totals came in at $394,756.89 to run the three plants. And in 2016 budget, council and staff decided to divide the total of the Aqua bill based on the users of each plant. So to summarize that, just to recap, Cobden users were responsible for 49% of the Aqua bill. Beachburg users were responsible for 47.5% of the Aqua bill, and Haley's users were set for 3.5% of the Aqua bill.
And if I may, the reason we did that, if council can recall, is because each plant has to be operated under the same standard of care in the eyes of the province. So the revenue generated from 33 houses and Haley's cannot keep up with what the actual operation and management of that system cost. So that's why we took this approach. Otherwise, Haley's would have a tremendous increase every year.
I did check, and it was I just double-checked that number, and we were set originally at 62% increase for Haley's. They just physically couldn't afford that.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Well, I think this is probably a fair way of doing it, because I'm sure that if you were going to pay a third of the expenses, you'd want a third of the time spent at the plant, and I'm sure that plant in Haley's does not require 1/3 of the time. But now, just for clarification, any expenses that are occurred in the plant or upgrades to the plant, are they split 3 ways as well, or are they split like
No.
each plant looks after their
That's
own?
right.
Like Cobden would take care of their expenses
That's right.
towards that. Then I'm
Absolutely.
quite in favor, because it would not be fair in my, because if you're gonna do that, you spread them pretty thin, because you'd need to have a third of the time if you're spending a third of the cost.
That's right. Okay, so the 2017 Aqua expenses are set for $476,234. And what we would suggest is we follow the same breakdown, as Darrell just stated, as we did in the 2016 budget. So, Cobden would be responsible for $233,355 of that total. Beachburg would be responsible for $226,211 of that total, and Haley's would be responsible for $16,668 of that 2017 Aqua budgeted amount.
Any discussion with regards to that breakdown? Everybody satisfied with that breakdown? Is there a way that we can put that in stone for future references, or are you going to review the users each year and just adjust accordingly?
Yes, I had Tally provide me with the users again, and it actually ends up being the exact same numbers.
Okay. Perfect. Everybody's good with that? Okay.
So we'll just touch a little bit of the expenses. One of the major expenses throughout all 3 water plants is equipment repairs and supplies. So we've budgeted $61,450, and I'll let Steve go through each plant and just kind of touch out what are the main highlights that Aqua will be working on.
The potassium permanganate system, we use potassium permanganate at the inlet or the intake for the Cobden plant. It's for zebra mussel control and manganese control, and it was scheduled to be repaired last summer by divers. It didn't get done, so it's budgeted again for this year. That's a big expense right there.
$48,700.
Yeah. I had divers down. Each dive is $7,000 to $10,000 just for inspection. So that's what that is. So hopefully we're on target to get it done this year. That was supposed to be done last year. Other than that, you're typically just dealing with your pumps, your analyzers, your SCADA. That's the logic or the automation that runs the plants, and that's just general maintenance.
Okay, so the next line item budget is the building repairs and maintenance, and that's set at $12,500. Cobden Water Treatment Plant, looking at inspection, repair of sludge tank at $3,000. The Beachburg Water Treatment Plant, an inspection and repairs of clear well at $7,000. And the Haley Water Treatment Plant is a pressure tank test, electrical, and the heater at $2,500. We also have in the transmission section, under the Cobden, under the miscellaneous, is the chemical transfer barrel and the pump at $6,250. Beachburg emergency repairs and tools at $5,250, and Haley Water Treatment Plant at emergency repairs of about $1,000. Now, another line item is the Cobden Water, the distribution. This is for the Cobden Water Treatment Plant. We're looking at inspection of the water tower here in Cobden, as well as hydrant maintenance of $7,000. And the Beachburg Water Treatment Plant, pressure reducing valve and hydrant maintenance at $5,000.
Mayor Johnson?
Just an FYI kind of thing for Hal. The inspection of the water tower, you have to drain that down and go inside, or can they do it different than they used to do it?
Last time it was done, they put a camera in it, and they they took photos.
Okay.
It was not drained.
Okay, so that's why it's that cheap then. It's you don't have to re-chlorinate and test, and so okay, that sounds good. Thanks.
Now, one of the capital projects, the only big capital projects in the water budget is the detailed design and engineering cost of the True Love project, which is only 30% of the total cost, which comes in at $51,749. So when I was working the numbers, I was trying to keep the Cobden rate at about a 3% increase, and when I added that capital project in, it bumped it over quite a bit higher than 3%. So what I would like to suggest to council is, because we transferred $148,000 into reserves, if we need that project done, if we put that project as an expense, but on the revenue side, take that $51,749 out of reserves. And by doing that, and you'll see later on that it'll keep the rate increase at a 3%. Any questions on that?
Councillor McLaughlin?
Because, and the reason is, whenever you transferred that money, that was like the 140-some thousand was combined?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And so then you're just saying, take,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because some of those projects would have been scheduled to be done, would have been the Cobden, at the
Yes.
Cobden plant as well.
Yes.
A lot of it would.
And
So-
and my thought process by doing this budget was thinking in the next couple years, our Cobden sewers users are going to be hit, so I don't want to do a huge hit on both sides of it. If we could, we are budgeting also in the Beechburg water, and you'll see the Beechburg water as well as the Haley's water, some money going back into reserves also. So it's kind of a little in and out. But this is just a suggestion from my behalf. It doesn't mean that we have to take it.
Mayor Johnson and then Councillor Olmsted.
I would tend to agree with Marcia. That's what our reserves are for, and it's very important to get this engineering in place so that we have a shelf ready. We're not going to get grants to do this job if we don't have the engineering in place. It can sit in the shelf and gain dust, but when we want to get a grant, we have to have it there and prove that it's ready to roll. So I'm totally in favor of pulling that out at your suggestion, yes.
Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, just looking for, what's currently in reserves now? Is there a schedule?
Sorry, yes, I didn't give you the copy, but right now, the reserves in the Cobden, it's $146,063.79. I'm suggesting to take out $51,749. At the end of the year, it will leave $94,314.79. I can provide all council with
Actually,
this
it does, so I was hoping I was reading that right. It does say on 24/24/02/70/10, transfer to reserves, at 146.63.79. So that is the current reserve then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So they all, and that's...
Yes, and we're just out of the Cobden budget, we didn't budget anything to go back into reserves.
Right.
I'm going to pull it out.
Yeah.
But the other two plants, I've budgeted money to go back into reserves.
Yeah. So that line on all of them is what's in reserve. For instance, Beechburg is
yes,
showing
That's right.
17,000.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree with Marcia's recommendation. It is a project that needs to be done, and without the engineering, we can't move forward. We can't apply for grants, and they're going to be getting hit hard over the years. So, yep.
Okay, thank you. So just a background on some water billing. We do, just to remind council and our users, that we do bill quarterly, March, June, September, and December. I've detailed up on the screen the amount of users for each plant, and this information came from the first billing that we did in March 2017. I've also detailed up here your current water rates for each plant, Cobden, Beechburg, as well as Haley's. And again, these are quarterly rates. So basically, what I was looking at was, in the Cobden water, a rate increase of 3%. So my proposed revenue It's $396,577, and you guys can follow if you like on the blue sheet that I provided you. Transfer from reserves is the $51,749 for the True Love Street project, as well as the proposed expenses is $448,426. So in order to balance that budget, we will require a 3% rate increase in the Cobden Water. Now you will, I did put it on that blue sheet just to show you, in 2016, we had to increase our rates by 8.3%. So this year we're looking at a 3% increase. Now moving on to Beachburg, which is the, I guess that would be orange-yellow sheet. Proposed revenue is $330,048. Proposed expenses are the same. In order to balance that budget, we will require a 1% rate increase, but please note that I have budgeted to put back into reserves $15,474. And last but not least is the Haley water rate increase of 1%. Proposed revenue is $57,727. Proposed expenses is the same, and in order to balance that budget, we will require a 1% rate increase to the Haley users, and that puts in $6,539 into reserves.
Sorry, how much? I'm just trying to find it here. In your small typing again.
The reserves for Haley's is $6,539.
I just don't see the transfer to reserve, sorry.
It's in the middle, it's under...
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Okay, thank you. I was thinking that was a subtotal rather than a... With taking that out, what does your rate do? Probably reduces the rate a little bit for Haley's. And the only reason why I'm thinking that all their infrastructure is reasonably new, and it's going to be, should be good for the next 35 to 40 years. And yes, we do have to put amounts away for reserves, but their rates are quite high.
So we really wouldn't have to.
Councillor Olmsted?
While it almost sounds like an election promise, I would fully agree that the discussion we had here 2 or 2.5 years ago was absolutely bleak. I think it was 50, 60, 70% increases. So I think it'd be a real nice gesture, or to show that we can actually proceed without any increases at all. I think would be a real good show to the residents of Haley's.
Or even decrease it by, to put it to 3,000 that you're transferring to reserves. Even, it'd be nice to see a little bit of a decrease for them, or no increase at all.
The only when I first took over the treasury position, it was the sewer budget that was not, nobody had increased the rates here
for a number of years,
for all those years, and then we had to hit them, which is such a huge amount. A 1% to me, we always said we would go forward, always do a slight increase of something, put that into reserves in case, maybe a project will come up. I know the plant is fairly new, but we don't know.
All the pipes are new, everything's new.
But things could happen, and I mean, it's up to council. It's certainly up to council. This budget, the Haley's budget is such a bare bone budget anyways, that they don't have a lot of expenses on their side. We could, if you want to just put the 3,000 in, we can certainly do that, and figure out, or
what happens with a no increase to their rates?
Well,
can we put
the no increase to their rates, they're going to have an extra $59.68. So then we would have to decrease. So
a no increase, we can still put $5,900?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what I would recommend.
Yeah.
0% increase.
I third that.
Yeah. And I agree with you, Marcia, overall, and I think with our new structure of how we're passing on the aqua billing, is more fair
Yes. Oh,
than, because
absolutely.
Aqua used to actually bill, okay, this was Haley's, this was Cobden.
And they do now too.
And they,
And they do
yeah,
now. We see it and we don't bill them that, like, it comes to
It-
us
right.
separate, which is quite high. Like, I actually even brought the bill just in case council would to ask, just to show you what Aqua does bill Haley's.
For Haley's.
It's,
Councillor Olmsted?
Question I probably should have asked a while ago, on the 2016 actuals, are these reconciled amounts from Aqua for their contracts?
yes.
So they've all been reconciled already, thank you.
So the total charges, that they're looking at billing for the Haley's plant is $54,765, and we're only putting in, what are you putting in, sorry, let me go up here,
Revenue is
16,000. So, I mean, that's what Aqua is stating to us, that that's what it costs to run that plant. But as council and staff, we decided to bill it based on the users,
Mm-hmm.
which gives you 16.
which gave us the 16. So,
Councillor McLaughlin?
I think just in Marcia's event, like, there's a whole difference between their billing and our way of billing it, because I'm sure it doesn't take, because that's a new plant as well. So it's not gonna take the time, to my thinking. It's very easy to do when you just split it 3 ways. That's an easy way of deciding what's what, but I like what we're doing, so, and I think that's a fair way, because if you're gonna pay, then they should be spending a third of their time there, and there's no need to spend a third of the time. That's lost time.
Steve?
They don't spend, just further to what you're saying, Councillor McLaughlin, I did ask them about, when they charge $57,000 to run Haley's, those are, like, I questioned the cost, and Brad Sweet, he said, that truly is the cost to run that plant. No, I disagree. It is, that's what, they're down there more than you think. They still have to go down there every day. They still have to sample. They have to do testing. They have to do maintenance. I'm telling you, that's what it costs to run that plant.
Yeah. Okay, but I think we're all good with the 0% increase and the transfer to reserves of 5968.
yeah.
Okay, perfect. Oh, it's 2-0 Washington. Just as an update.
Okay, I just have a couple more slides, now that the Haley's one will be wrong, but, just the Cobden, so you'll see up there, hold on, let me make this a little bigger here. So, so this will be the new rate, with a 3% increase for the Cobden, which is, $178.52, a yearly increase of $20.80 for the year. Okay? That's for residential, sorry.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Actually, is there a flat rate for the meter?
There
I
is,
thought, eh?
there is.
It's like one residential,
It's just a flat,
There's a flat rate per
but I thought we were implementing that there would be a minimum if the metered cost was not as high as a residential
well, that's something that,
user. I thought that had
that is
come,
something that we're definitely gonna need to look into, because there are
yeah,
certain ones that
I
are.
know. And I think we need to do that. I thought we had
Put
done
on
that.
this year's
But,
to-do list.
maybe if, Steve could put that on the agenda, because I'm certainly totally in favor of having a flat rate, that at least it has to be the same as a hookup. That's my thinking. Minimum, there has to be that at minimum. It should be more, but, because if I'm thinking the one that I'm thinking about, it's, I think it's totally occupied now, is it not?
I don't know.
I wouldn't say for sure, but as I drive by, I think it is, so. I think that needs to be addressed, and sooner than later, so if maybe we could get that on to, Chair Mackay. Maybe on your next, committee meeting, we could have that put on there, that we address that.
Councillor McLaughlin, are you speaking of the meter? Like, we only have three
Yeah, we
three
have
meters.
three,
Yes.
and it's the third one that I'm talking about.
The one, yeah, okay, I know what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, without going any further, I think everybody is quite aware of what's happening.
Rob will just update that.
Just a quick one, that will require some work, and I would recommend that we look at that. There will be, I know I received a letter regarding, one of the commercial properties and whether they should be metered or not. So I think that's something that we need to look at before the next rate budget in 2018. So we're not necessarily discussing it at the next environmental services meeting, but I think we need to look at the rate strategy generally, and we will require some time to do that.
Mayor Johnson.
I would just like to caution that if you've got a meter on, it's on there for a reason and by rate. And if you make a minimum charge with a meter in place, we could be running into some pretty tough issues. Like the meter was put on because normally there's a high usage. So if we're going to do a flat rate, then these people probably want to take the meter off. At that point, then there's a very good opportunity for them to use whatever they want.
And you can have, some municipalities have a combination of a flat rate plus a usage rate. City of Ottawa, where I worked, Meaford was another one, where all the properties were at a meter. So as I said, I think we need to kind of take a bigger view of this, a longer view of this, and come back and do some of that analysis prior to the next rate budget, and not just look at one property here or there, but take a broader look at how we meter, and when we meter, when we don't. Is there a flat rate? Is there a usage rate? And it might require an updating of the financial study that was required for the drinking water systems.
Okay, so on to the Beachburg water rate history. This is based on the 1% increase that I proposed to council. So your residential rate is going up to $164.15 quarterly from $162.52, which is a yearly increase of $6.52. And then Haley's, well, I'll change that slide now, and it will stay then for the 2017 year based on council's recommendation at $439.59. That's quarterly, yeah. So, just to highlight the water budget will come back on the May 3rd with a public discussion, I guess, as well as the sewer budget then will come up. So hopefully it goes as fast as this one did. And then if anybody has any questions.
Any questions? Nope. Job well done.
Thanks.
Oh, all those in favor of the recommendation? All those against? Passed. Fabulous. That's right. Hey.
I can't comment.
You're not 40 yet. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the amendments to the municipal acts. Should I read the recommendation first and then ask for a mover and seconder? Okay. The recommendation is that Corporate Services Committee receives the report for information purposes. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Olmsted, Councillor Breaker. And Rob will update us. It's 2-1.
I'd promised with my work plan that I would update you on some recent legislative changes. And I'll just highlight a few of them. So the campaign period has been shortened drastically. We'll start May 1st, 2018 and end on July 23rd, 2018. That's the period. So usually somebody could file a nomination as of January 1st. It's no longer the case. It's May 1st. And then nomination day has been moved back to July instead of September. So that will really have a drastic change on how campaigning occurs in nominations. To submit a nomination, a person must now have signatures of 25 voters supporting the nomination. So you must, potential candidates will need to find 25 friends. And supporters will sign a declaration stating that they're eligible to vote on the date of their signature in the municipality. New offenses and prohibitions have been noted. It's an offense to give, lend, offer, or promise someone money or other compensation to induce them to run, not run, or withdraw from running for office. And voters are prohibited from taking photos or videos, i.e. selfies, of their marked ballots. Some policies that are now going to be required. A policy is now required for the use of corporate resources. So for instance, we provide council with, we could provide you with a variety of corporate resources. I'm going to be bringing forward a policy on how that would stop during the election year. Also, a policy on automatic recounts is also possible, and I will be bringing forward a policy. Accessibility, we were required to do a report 90 days after the election, and recent changes to do an accessibility plan before the election. And with the voting methods and the report that I did at the last meeting, there are a number of accessible features that we will be highlighting. So with the tabulation and the in-person voting, but also with telephone and internet. So those were a few that I wish to highlight for you. The contribution limit with Bill 68 is rising from $750 to $1,200, which is another one. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to address them, but you have the summary of changes in the report.
Term of office will change to November 15th instead of December 1st?
Yep, and that's as part of Bill 68, which is the next report. I know that AMO and the Association of Municipal Clerks and Managers and Treasurers have some concerns with that, and there's issues in terms of the lame duck period. So until Bill 68 is approved, we'll see if that holds. But that's not in the Municipal Act, the Municipal Elections Act. That's in the Municipal Act changes, which are currently before the legislature. But the changes that I have enumerated have been passed and have received royal assent.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the proposed changes to the municipal legislation. So do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor McLaughlin, seconded by Councilor Mackay, that Corporate Services Committee receive this report for information purposes.
So Madam Chair, the main piece of legislation that's being amended is the Municipal Act, but also the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. There's also some minor changes to the Planning Act. Just a few things to highlight. Codes of conduct for council will now be mandatory. We already have one. But now they will be mandatory. Integrity commissioners, I know Horton Township has one, are now also going to be mandatory unless that changes in the legislation. And the duties will be expanded. There are to provide, they can conduct inquiries, provide advice to council in writing. Right now, if it comes to municipal conflict of interest legislation, you need to seek your own legal advice. But the Integrity Commissioner will be able to provide some advice in writing, and they will be providing some educational information as well. So there are some significant cost implications should we be obliged to have an Integrity Commissioner. We have a code right now, but not an Integrity Commissioner. So once the Act passes and receives royal assent, we'll come back with a follow-up report on options to move forward. We can partner with other municipalities if we're satisfied that they have competent Integrity Commissioners. Changes to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. It will be mandatory to file a written statement anytime somebody discloses at the meeting. We have a form that is used, but that will be required in the Act. And I will be required as the clerk to make public an accessible registry of all those written statements every time a declaration has occurred. And the penalties that can be imposed under the legislation by a judge have been broadened to include reprimands, suspensions, declaring the member's seat vacant, disqualifying a member, etc. In terms of open meetings, they've clarified some of the language, which is kind of helpful, but there's some concerns from the clerk community on some of these and how they're worded now. But there will be 4 additional discretionary open meeting exceptions. So we'll have more reasons to go enclosed. And as your clerk, I would recommend that we avoid, these are all discretionary, meaning we are not obligated to go enclosed, and we do our best to only go in closed session when we truly have to. In Marcia's realm, municipal tax sales, the requirement to wait 3 years is going to be reduced to 2 years to proceed to a tax sale. And another one that a few that I'd like to highlight, one, a council municipal staff relations policy is a requirement. So how council and staff work together and the relationship between them. There's some language in your code of conduct, but that is a new
Councillor
requirement.
McLaughlin, you have a question?
Just on the tax sales, what happens if people already are 3 years in rear, and now you're going to 2 years? Are they grandfathered, or what happens there? Do you have an answer? Or could you
I'm
get-
not sure of the
Okay.
how far back we can go. The issue will be the people that are above the 2 but waiting for the 3, and it's really 3 plus 1 by the time you register, so it's really going to go down to 2 plus 1. Or is it 2 plus 1 now? Some municipalities provide some flexibility in terms of trying to get people in arrears agreements to try to get them to pay. We try as much as possible to work with people to get them making payments. I don't think that's going to change, but in certain, we'll be able to cut the wait for 1 year. But I don't know from a treasurer's standpoint the practical elements of tax sales. But yeah.
I think the change going from 3 to 2 is going to be drastic on some property owners. It would be my recommendation, I mean, the 2 years, it would be the minimum, like, before you can start. I would recommend just staying as is, the 3 years. You can go, maybe your letter after 2 years can be a little bit more forceful than it used to be, because it used to be just a reminder notices until you got to the 3rd year. But to start, there's a number, unless we got into a situation where the tax arrears was so great that we needed to push it, but I would defer to the treasurer to say, to find out if we're at that point. We're not in the business for selling properties. They're taking properties on people.
I think we try to work with people as much as possible and start getting some payments, and then we can do that informally, but the Municipal Act allows us to enter into formal agreements. But the general rule has always been 3, and then you try to work with them, but it's where there's no movement at all or no desire for movement that this provides us the tool to do it. But again, if you wait an extra year and the taxes outweigh the value of the property, you're better off to move ahead as soon as you can.
Yeah, I do like what I'm hearing, where work with the people rather than saying this is it. So I did like the answers that I got. I think that's the way we should go.
So just a few more to highlight. Administrative penalties. So we don't have many enforceable bylaws where we would ticket, but you can ticket under the Provincial Offences Act, but the Municipal Act has been strengthened for us to apply administrative penalties, which would take those out of the provincial offences side of things. There's also no longer a limit for a municipality to pass bylaws regulating existing advertising devices. So you're able, should we decide to have a sign bylaw, it would apply to all existing signs. And same for site alteration. We do not have a site alteration bylaw, but should we ever proceed that way, they've cleaned up some of the language. So those were just a few of the highlights. The main one to keep an eye on is the requirement for integrity commissioner, and should that happen, we'll be bringing forward options to council on how to proceed.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Okay, next item on the agenda is size and composition of council. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Olmsted, Councillor McLaughlin. Recommendation that Corporate Services Committee receive this report for information purposes. Rob?
So Councillor McLaughlin had asked for a discussion on this item, so I took the opportunity to just provide some background that you probably all know better than I. But with amalgamation, it was a council of 9, and then the most recent change and these changes are outlined in the report, were to a council of 7 with a mayor elected at large, a reeve elected at large who serves on county council, and 5 councillors elected at large. Just a few sections of the Municipal Act that apply here. Section 217 sets out that the size of council must be no fewer than 5 members, with the head of council elected by general vote. That's required in the Act. But it also provides you the opportunity to elect the other members of council either by ward or general vote. I should note that any time you're messing with wards, those decisions are appealable to the Ontario Municipal Board, and that's not the case with composition, so the number, but if you introduce wards or take them away, those decisions are appealable. Section 220 authorizes the municipality to change the names, so we've had reeves and mayors, councillors, so you can change the titles of office holders. And Section 222, the one that I was specifically dealing with, is wards. And again, the important part is to deal with any changes to take effect for the next election must be in place by January 1st, 2018. And for wards, because they're appealable to, those decisions are appealable to the Ontario Municipal Board, all those matters must be dealt with, appeals and all, by January 1st. So if council generally wishes to dive into this subject matter, you probably would be advised to do so fairly quickly. Just one last quick reminder, a petition of the electors is also possible requesting the establishment of wards, and it would be 1% of eligible electors, and council has a period of time to deal with that matter, and again, that decision is appealable to the Ontario Municipal Board. So this report does not make any recommendations with regard to this. There's been an evolution over since amalgamation. However, there was a request to bring this forward, and I wanted to provide you the sections of the Municipal Act that apply.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Yeah, and I was the one that asked this to be brought forward because I've sat 2 times. I've sat since 2003, and in 2003 we used to, and I think we should have a deputy mayor. And in 2003, the councillors all ran in their ward, and the council itself would declare the deputy mayor. And which I'm happy with that, but I remember when we started this council, and I mentioned that, Councillor Rager said, if you want a deputy mayor, it should be elected. So that's where one of my main concerns are, that to reduce council by 1 number and to have a deputy mayor run. Because I don't think it's right to put that burden onto the reeve without giving him any extra compensation as well. But it's only my recommendation. I don't know where you want to go, if you just want to let it die. I'm just putting it out there.
Any further discussion? Would that recommendation be at large to be voted on, or similar to the way it was before, where it's either...
Obviously, this council did not feel that it was good to try and run a deputy mayor with the council, so my recommendation is to reduce council from 5 to 4 and have a deputy mayor run at large, along with your reeve and your mayor.
So have 3 run at large and 4...
No, 4 run at large, 4 councillors run at large.
Yes.
1 deputy mayor
Everybody's
at large.
at large, exactly.
Yeah.
And the 3 run for individual positions.
Yes. Yeah, if you want.
Yeah. Councillor Olmsted?
I'd actually be more in favor of the current system, and then council determine the deputy mayor. And the reason I say that is I wouldn't want to lose a very good council member that would contribute to council, and council obviously respect that individual. If you're going to vote for that person as 7 people, you're going to vote for that person to be deputy mayor. I wouldn't want to lose that person in a at-large vote, where that person may get beat out because he's running in that one position, but that person would be a very valuable member of council currently. And we've seen that happen over the years where some people leave a councillor's chair to run for another position, and we all know that you could see a person, a very good contributing member, get beat out, where that person would be a very valuable member at the tables.
Mayor Johnson?
Just my statement is I can't understand why we would need a reeve and a deputy mayor both. I don't see the purpose. I don't see the purpose of that. That's my statement. I just don't see the purpose.
Perhaps we could take a look at how others in Renfrew County deal with their, whether or not they have a deputy mayor or not, and how their council setup is, so that we can have a comparison, you know, at any point in time. I don't think it has to be done in the next 2 weeks or anything, but see how everybody's set up that way, and maybe send out a survey or something just to compare. Are we the same as everybody? I don't know who's the deputy mayor. Some have deputy mayors that rotate for 3 months at a time over the 4-year period, or 6 months at a time, or there's different areas. I'd just like to see how everybody else does it, and whether or not they have a deputy mayor at all. Yeah. Councillor McLaughlin?
I basically brought this forward so that we wouldn't run into that discussion. It would be set in stone before because this council should be the council that sets the stonework for the new elected council. So I think that decision needs to be done by this council, be it however you want to do it. I'm very flexible, but I did not like the way it was handled the last time.
Okay, any further discussion? Councillor Wakefield?
As I give it some thought, I had never really thought about it, but when Councillor Olmsted, the way he just explained that, I could see that where that makes sense, that if we chose to go that route, that we do it within council and not at large. And I never ever thought of it until you mentioned that. So thank you for that. I would reconsider that.
Councillor McLaughlin?
Maybe next time when I try to make my points, I should talk to Councillor Olmsted first.
Just to point out my experience in Ottawa, to appoint the deputy mayor in that fashion, in a rotating fashion, that's a bylaw of council. City of Ottawa, for instance, has done that for years. Mississippi Mills, I believe, also. You can do it on rotation for a period of time or for the term. You can do that by bylaw. So we'll go and do that work and bring that back.
To see how others do it. Mayor Johnson?
Yeah, my point is that they don't usually, or I don't know of any council that uses a deputy mayor and a reeve both. That's why I don't see the point, because the reeve does the same position most of the time, and the mayor doesn't go to the county at this point, right? So it just, we have to have 5 councillors, right? Didn't you just say that?
Maybe we'll just review it and we'll discuss it at another night.
Okay,
now
I'm happy to do that, absolutely.
And we'll move it along. That's 4-1 for Washington. Anyways.
It just seems redundant.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. Okay, next item on the agenda is marriage solemnization services by the CAO and clerk. I have a mover and seconder. Moved by Mayor Johnson, seconded by Councillor McLaughlin. The recommendation that Corporate Services Committee recommend Council of the Township of Whitewater Region enact a bylaw to authorize the CAO clerk to perform marriage solemnization services in addition to the 3 private officiants currently authorized to do so on behalf of the CAO clerk. Any discussion? Rob, first.
I've been asked to perform 2 marriages in Meaford, old colleagues. And I should just point out that the 3 officiants do a great job. The goal here is not to take away from any of the work they do, but it's to also remind ourselves that their authority is a derivative of the authority given to the clerk to perform marriages under the Marriage Act and the regulations. The goal is not to impede on that. It would allow me to do other marriages in the province, but also should the 3 officiants not be available to offer that service. And it would just be to clean up that bylaw to be able to do so. I would not receive any remuneration for any marriages I do. I know in some parts of the province the clerk does. The fees, when charged, when determined, would be going to the coffers of the municipality. I would not profit in any way from doing these services. It's just the ability to be able to do so when required.
Any discussion? Councillor Mackay first, then Councillor McLaughlin.
Are you interested in doing it? Do you like doing it?
I'm okay doing it. It's not something that I seek out. I know some clerks really enjoy it. I don't necessarily, it's not at the top of the functions that I enjoy doing, but I appreciate doing it for family and friends where required, and then it's a service that we provide to the public, and if the 3 officiants are not available and we can bring in some additional revenue, I have no issues providing the service to the public, but it's not something that I dream of doing, I should say.
Councillor McLaughlin.
Well, I sat on council when we first started this. I think the first one was a lady from Westmead, and I think the CAO at that time had no interest in it, so I have no problem. My question is, will there have to be training done, or have the training already done, or do you have?
I've performed about 20 marriages, so been there, done that.
That totally answers my question, and I have no problems with it.
Okay. All those in favor? All those opposed? Carried. And that's it for me. We're nothing on economic development, and the next item on the agenda is emergency